Hello and welcome to the 7th video in my series to explain how I use external controllers to connect to Microsoft Flight Simulator. Again, using Axis and Ohs, the X-Touch Mini, and this time we're just going to concentrate on the layer A buttons. What we're trying to achieve is to emulate the autopilot panel. So the layout we've got is really the autopilot turned through 90 degrees. So we've got the autopilot heading, nav and the approach mode on one layer, and flight director, alt hold, VNav, back course on the other line. So that's what we're trying to achieve today. As before, I'll put the panel on the screen so you can see the actual panel I'm using, and we'll bring up Axis and Ohs to see what's going on. What we'll do as before is watch the simulator events. We can see what's happening as we press them. This is the first one that's causing a little bit of a headache. The first time we press the autopilot, when we press that, it toggles the flight director and the AP master switch. If I clear that list, that turns off the autopilot, turn it back on again, and from now it's not affecting the flight director at all. It just does the autopilot. So there's some internal logic inside Microsoft's Flight Simulator that I can't get to. But if I press, that turns the autopilot off. You heard the chime warning you that it's gone off, and eventually that sign will go away. Turn it back on again, and it's definitely on. There's the chime. A few seconds later the autopilot disengages and goes away. So that's what we're going to try and emulate. I'm just going to program in the autopilot master switch. So if we bring back Axis and Ohs, and that should be enough of a filter. AP master. And that's the toggle there. Okay, and we'll allocate that to this button here. Click Add, and let's demonstrate this. Unfortunately, quite a few things can only be demonstrated in flight, but if I press the AP button, you see the autopilot has come on. When I press it, if you listen carefully, you hear the chime. It's definitely chimed off, and I assure you, when you're flying, you're definitely out of the autopilot. But for some reason, it doesn't take the sign off here, take the graphic away. If I press it again, it will come in. Press it again. That's the chime. It's definitely disengaged, but it's still visible. I can turn the flight director off, but it does work. Okay, next one across. We're going to do the heading button next. So if we click on that, let's clear the list so we can concentrate on the heading, and that is the AP panel heading hold. So we'll add that in. AP panel, I want heading hold, and that toggles. Click on there, add. We can just test it. We'll press the heading button here, and you'll see that it changes quite happily there, but that's fine. Next one is the nav. Exactly the same procedure. We'll clear the list. This one is AP nav1 hold. It says nav1, but it will work with whatever's active on the CDI. So we'll add that one in. AP nav1 hold, and add that to the button. Add approach mode. Okay, we'll test it out. Clear the list. Approach mode, and that is autopilot approach hold. So we can add that in. Allocates that to the button. Okay, I've done these ones here. I'll come back to the flight level change and the vertical speed change later. So let's just work our way along here. So flight director. And that one is toggle flight director. Add that. The altitude hold. AP alt hold. And we want the toggle version of that. VNav isn't emulated, so we can leave that one alone, but the back course is. That's APBC hold. And add that to the back course. Okay, so I said we'd look at the flight level control and the vertical speed and see what's going on there. So let's get a look at that. So it depends what mode are in here, what the up and down buttons actually do. So if I take the autopilot out and the flight director out, let's put the flight director back in. Once the flight director's in, even with when the autopilot's not working, it changes the pitch. Put it in vertical speed mode, and it is incrementing and decrementing the vertical speed variable. And if we're in flight level control mode, well, it's not working because it hasn't got a target it's trying to reach. And these are one of the things you can only really demonstrate when you're actually in flight. But it does change the function of the up and down, the buttons there. So I'll show you the ones that I've got programmed in at the moment. So as you can see, they are using 3 different functions here. Well, I'm not emulating the pitch change. I'm just going to emulate the target airspeed for the flight level change and the vertical speed, and I'm going to set those. So I'm going to set those onto those buttons now. I want to program that one there, AP panel, and I want to put in the flight level change toggle. And this is one we need to use from a script. So you'll have to get the script from the website shown in the previous video. I'll put a link in the description here so you can see where I got that from. But it doesn't work if you look at the other flight level toggle that's available. That doesn't work. It has to be this script that you put in. Okay, so we're going to add that script there. Add. And that should put it into flight level control mode. So press that, and you can see here where it's flight level control. And what it does is it captures your current airspeed. Whatever your airspeed is, it will capture that speed. And I'll show you something else that I developed later. But what I want to do now is to put in those controls that go along with there, so that we can increase or decrease our target speed. So let's add those in now. The filter I want to apply here is AP speed, and I've got the AP speed increase and decrease. Let's put the increase one here. We'll add that to this button here, so that's going to go up. Add, and the same filter as before. And decrease. So what I've done on the for this one here is I've put 2 commands onto this one, so it brings up the flight level change and actually gives it the value that I want it to go to straight away. So you need to look and find the best rate of climb for whichever aircraft you've got. So I'm going to add 2 functions. I'm going to add one for the key down event. So as you press the button, it puts in the flight level change command. So we'll apply on the scripts here, and when we let go of the button, it'll be the key up version, and we're going to put in a speed set, not an increase or decrease, but we're actually going to set a speed, and I'm going to put 76 knots in here, which seems to work well for the Cessna. So we'll put in 76 knots. Oops, wrong one. Not in there. In here. We'll add that in. And that's all on that button there. So it's going to set the best speed, the best rate of climb. Add that. And let's see if I can emulate that working here. I press FLC best. And you can see straight away it's put its flight level control and at 76 knots. Okay, so the vertical speed. As we see, vertical speed is done with the AP panel VS hold, so we'll put that function in now. EP panel vertical speed hold. I now want to use the up and down buttons there. So I want to have the increment and decrement. So increment first of all. And we'll put the VS down next. And those are here. Everything again sorted into alphabetical order. You can find what you're looking for. Okay, I'm going to have a little break now. We'll take it up in the air and we'll show the autopilot in operation and see how it works. So this is a test flight and we're on runway 20 at Doncaster Sheffield Airport. So what we'll do is we'll use this one here to align the heading bug with the runway, and let's park that there. That might help you. So we can see the headings aligned, and we'll pre-select an altitude of 2,000 feet. I'm also tuned into the VOR at Pole Hill, and I've set the GPS to take us back towards the airport once we've moved around. So let's take it up and see what happens. So we'll pre-select, we'll arm the heading mode, so that's ready to go. Okay, it's quite early in the flight, but let's engage the autopilot and see if the heading mode picks up. Oops, I won't sing. And let's engage the flight level control. And this is set 76 knots, so I've used the FLC best rate of climb. And I admit it was a terrible takeoff, but it's quite difficult with the microphone in front of you and cameras all over the place. It's clumsy control layout. Okay, it's stabilised now. And you've got a good rate of climb. Still hunting for the 76 knots. And that seems stable. Let's test the heading control. So if we rotate the heading bug, that's definitely following that. And we'll let it move towards 2,000 feet. Let's just check we can change the intended speed. We can. 79 knots, 73, 72 knots. So that's working perfectly. And we're almost at 2,000 feet now. Begin to level off. So let's demonstrate the autopilot. I'm going to take it out of autopilot mode. So you'll hear the chime. It says it's definitely out of autopilot, but the indicator hasn't gone off. But you can see it's definitely out of autopilot mode. We're drifting away. But put it back into autopilot. Pick up the heading bug, and away it goes. Okay, let's try and pick up Pole Hill. I can see that I'm tuned into that, so let's point directly at it. Okay, so let's set it for nav mode. And we're definitely on the VOR now. And that will hunt and slowly pick up the VOR. Okay, so let's try using the vertical speed mode. So I'm going to set a target of 3,000 feet, put it in vertical speed mode, and we'll climb at 500 feet per minute. And we can change that to 400. That's all working perfectly. So the last thing to do will be to keep it in VOR mode and change this to GPS. See if that captures GPS. We'll put it back into nav mode and it says GPS. And away we go. So we've covered autopilot on and off, heading mode working, nav mode working both as a VOR and a GPS, I won't bother with approach mode at the moment, back course, but we've done altitude hold, flight level change mode and vertical speed, so everything seems to be working absolutely fine, apart from the strange anomaly of the autopilot not indicating properly here that it's switched off. But in a later video I'll show you how to program these lights so we can see which modes are actually on. Okay, thanks for watching, and the next time we will deal with the rotary controllers on level B.